All right, let's unpack. Today on the deep dive, we're plunging into what one of our sources is calling a great cultural shift, something it claims has been underway since, well, late 2024. And this shift, according to the source, it's really hitting media, entertainment, corporation, that whole sphere.
Right. And the main source we're looking at here is a YouTube video transcript, and it has a very, let's say, strong perspective.
Definitely strong. It calls it the woke industrial complex.
Provocative term.
It is. So our mission today is really just to extract the key arguments, look at the evidence this source presents, and help you understand the changes it asserts are happening and, the reasoning it gives.
Exactly. And the core claim, the thing you really need to grasp up front, is the source's assertion that this woke industrial complex has, and this is a direct quote, gotten its ass kicked.
Strong words again.
Very. Or, faced major defeats, put it mildly. Understanding this claim shift matters because the source really digs into whether this perceived wokeness is actually dead or if it's just circling the wagons, maybe waiting to rebrand.
We'll definitely explore the evidence it uses for that perspective.
Yeah.
So the central idea, this great cultural shift since November 2024, the source says it led into a tumultuous 2025. But despite all the chaos, it insists it's just undeniable that this woke industrial complex has faced some really significant setbacks.
And it paints a picture of really differing views on this. On one hand, some people saying woke is dead, period.
Right.
But then others arguing, no, it's just regrouping, circling the wagons and waiting to rebrand.
Yeah.
So this deep dive will lay out the evidence the source puts forward for its view, showing you the specific points it thinks demonstrate this shift.
Okay, so to back this up, the source presents what it calls, kind of cheekily, a gratitude list, a list of developments it connects to this cultural shift.
And what's really striking here is just how broad this list is.
Yeah.
The source is trying to show a really widespread impact, across totally different industries. News, movies, TV, even advertising. It's just a pretty fundamental change in what people are watching and buying.
Okay, let's get into the specifics then. This gratitude, it starts with traditional news media. Big declines cited there, like CNN and MSNBC rate, described as being in a week-to-week death spiral.
Ooh, strong language.
It is. And then it names names, claims Rachel Maddow took a pay cut, Wolf Blitzer and Jake Tapper were denied raises, and then a whole list of people supposedly gone. Joy Reid, Jim Acosta, Neil Cavuto, Lester Holt, Chuck Todd, Chris...
Wow, quite the list. And it doesn't stop with personnel or ratings, right? It also hits funding and finances.
Exactly. Claims PBS and NPR are defunded. USA Today also mentioned as gone, sort of implying a connection.
And then some legal payouts.
Yeah. Alleges ABC had to pay $15 million for lying about the president, and Paramount settled for $16 million over editing a propaganda piece for 60 Minutes. The Associated Press also apparently cut 8% of its workforce, according to the source.
So covering a lot of ground in media, what about politics and entertainment?
Touches on that too. States Justin Trudeau resigned. In entertainment, it claims, quote, woke Doctor Who was essentially canceled.
Okay.
And the intersectional feminist Wheel of Time, that's the source's description, also canceled, which it claims led to Amazon studio head Jennifer Salk getting fired.
The source calls her Kathleen Kennedy 2.0.
Yeah. Drawing that parallel, suggesting similar issues like with the Rooms of Power series, source puts it. Then it points to Movie Bomb.
Let me guess.
Rachel Zegler's Latin Snow White, Captain African American. Again, the source's terms for these projects cited as bombing, along with, and this is a sweeping claim,
Every single one. That's ambitious.
It's what the source. And finally, commercial late notes that late night ratings continue to tank.
Which we'll come back to.
And also observes morbidly obese people are appearing less frequently in commercials, and white people are back in commercials. Very specific observations there.
It's clear the source is trying to weave a narrative of a really pervasive multi-sector pushback. This whole list it's evidence that, well, the cultural tide has turned against certain kinds of content and corporate decisions.
So, okay, what's the takeaway for the big companies then? The ones running social media, news, entertainment?
Well, the source argues they're in a real bind, a conundrum.
How so?
It claims these cowardly, risk-averse companies basically let the extortion DEI wolf in the door. That's his metaphor for diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right, framing DEI as some kind of external pressure or extortion.
Exactly. And the consequence, the source argues, was alienating, well over half of your potential customers.
And those are the customers you need, right? To buy the stuff advertised, pay for streaming, buy movie tickets.
Precisely. They're essential. The source even wonders aloud if maybe investor money or USA money is dried up. So connecting this to the bigger picture, you see the source making a really strong case about market forces potentially driving corporate strategy now. This tension between, let's say, ideological goals and just basic financial survival.
And the source thinks some companies are waking up to this.
It argues some people inside these companies now realize they can't just get by with half of the potential customer base. They actually need all of them. It admits the shift isn't super fast, but insists there are signs and portents.
Okay, let's look at one of those signs. The source brings up what it calls the Great Sydney Sweeney controversy. Remember that?
Yeah.
American Eagle jeans campaign.
Oh, yeah. I remember the noise around that.
So the source says the unthinkable act was American Eagle just putting an admittedly hot woman in a pair of jeans working a punt. Simple as that, according to them.
And they contrast this heavily with other campaigns, right?
Yeah, specifically the Dylan Mulvaney fiasco, Bud Light, and also Jaguar. It calls those the worst-timed and most ill-advised ad campaign in history, claiming they dropped just as the culture supposedly shifted in November tour.
Timing is everything, I guess, in there. And the reaction to the Sweeney ads. The source highlights the criticism.
Oh, big time. Says critics called the ads Nazi propaganda, fascist weird, ethnic steak propaganda, even dystopian and like 1940s Germany. Really extreme reactions cited.
I'll pay them.
But then the source presents the results for American Eagle as a huge win, a reported $400 million jump in market cap.
It's significant.
20% stock increase, more people in stores, the jeans selling out online.
So this raises a really interesting question, doesn't it? About whether corporations are maybe changing how they respond to social media pressure, especially when the financial results seem to point the other way.
The source definitely thinks so. It claims American Eagle probably would have bent the knee, caved in the past, but they didn't this time.
Leading to their conclusion
that we're going to get more hot women in commercials, and that's a good thing. Again, direct quote from the source.
Quite the interpretation of events.
Okay, moving to another example, the source uses heavily late-night TV, specifically the cancellation of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert.
Right, and noting it wouldn't be replaced.
Key thing here, according to the source, is the financial. It claims the show cost $100 million a year and was running at a $40 million.
Ouch. Even with supposedly good ratings.
Yeah, despite having, the source says, the best ratings of all the broadcast late-night shows. It puts this alongside The Late Late Show with James Corden getting canceled in 2023, reportedly losing $20 million.
So the argument is purely financial.
That's what the source insists. It dismisses any idea it was a stipulation from Donald Trump. It says it was just lost, meaning, quote, nobody was watching it, or more importantly, buying the products that were advertised on the show.
And the reaction to the cancellation.
Described as pretty positive from everyone else, meaning people outside Colbert's immediate circle or fan.
Interesting. And they bring up Howard Stern, too.
Yes, another example. Claims Sirius lowballed him in contract negotiations. Why? Because his audience allegedly plummeted.
From what to what?
From a claimed 20 million down to the low 100,000, while still costing Sirius $100 million.
Deep drop, if accurate.
The source then gets quite personal, lamenting Stern's change from a man of the people who used to roast Hollywood into what it calls a celebrity ass kissing yenta. Very harsh.
So these examples, Colbert and Stern, they seem designed to show that even big names aren't immune to, well, audience numbers. And the bottom line, regardless of their politics, economic reality bites, essentially.
Okay, one more case study, Gina Carano versus Disney. The source positions Disney as a company that really betrayed their core audience.
How does it build that case?
It lists what it sees as Disney's past hypocrisy. Things like having no problem with naughty things being taught to kindergarten in Florida. Allegedly covering up Chadwick Boseman's face on a Black Panther China.
Okay.
Thanking a Chinese province linked to concentration, doing business where being gay is illegal, and hiring Pedro Pascal after, the source claims, he called half the country Confederate Nazis.
Strong stuff.
Very pointed accusation.
Yeah.
And the contrast is Carano.
Exactly. Disney supposedly took great exception with Gina Carano making an analogy, referring to her controversial social media post, and fired her.
Right. But the key development, according to the source,
is that Carano sued Disney, famously with help from Elon Musk's lawyers, and the source claims she won, calls it a technical knockout.
A win meaning a settlement, presumably. And how did Disney react?
The source points to a big shift in Lucasfilm's public statement after the settlement. It claims they went from dismissing her post to this more conciliatory tone.
How so? Praising her professionalism, expressing a desire to, quote, identify opportunity to work together with Ms. Carano.
That is a noticeable shift in tone.
The source frames this as huge. Gina made the corporate god bleed and submit. is the phrase. Embarrassing for Bob Iger, Kathleen Kennedy.
So what's fascinating here, stripping away the politics for a moment, is how this case study is used to show an individual, especially with powerful backing, potentially forcing a huge corporation to publicly backtrack.
Yeah, a real David and Goliath narrative in the source's telling. Okay, so bringing these threads together, the source sees a broad pattern, right?
Yes. The overarching theme it identifies is that many companies, it names Walmart, Bud Light, the late night shows, they all chose a side.
And in doing so,
they alienated half of this country and effectively made an enemy.
Does the source offer any insight into why this happened?
It briefly touches on what it calls self-reflection on the left, suggesting some acknowledge that a party focused on inclusivity can seem incredibly elitist, and that its loud voices scare people from saying what they believe.
But the overall shift, great cultural shift, the source sees it as...
Yeah, like a dam breaking. Not something that came out of nowhere. It argues that for a long time, most mainstream media sounded the same.
How so?
So the vast majority of broadcast news networks sound exactly the same. Except maybe Fox, which it kind of dismisses as controlled opposition anyway, despite better ratings.
Yeah.
And all of the late night shows sounded the same.
Pushing the same message.
Increasingly pumped with the same 4 or 5 variations of the message is how the source.
Yep.
So the real reason for the shift, it argues, not politics, but bending the knee to the customer.
The audience finally pushed back with their wallets and eyeballs.
That's the argument. And it claims this is why platforms like YouTube are dominating the dinosaur media, because the old guard turn the audience into an enemy.
Right. So the long-term implication for media, according to the source, is basically satisfy your whole audience or risk becoming financial viability is directly tied to not alienating huge chunks of potential customers.
Pretty much sums up the source's view on the business side.
Okay, so we've laid out the source's argument, the examples, the whole narrative, which brings us back question.
Is woke really dead?
Yeah. What's the final verdict from this source?
It's nuanced, actually. The source says, quote, unfortunately, the short answer is no, and it never will be.
Ah, so not dead then.
Not entirely gone, no. But, and this is the crucial part for the source, the good news is that the tolerance of the general public to put up with it is at nil.
Meaning people have just had enough?
That's the claim. It argues that the brand, let's say, suffered major brand damage and predicts it will now quietly walk away with its tail between its leg and then eventually rebrand.
Interesting. Any specific entities called out?
Yeah, BlackRock gets a specific mention. Accused of forcing behaviors through corporations and entertainment, and the source claims Larry Fink overplayed his hand.
Okay. Yeah.
So, still some battles happening.
Definitely. The source acknowledges ongoing shenanigans. It's word like citing credit card companies trying to pull games. But the difference now, it argues, is that more people are aware and they're fighting back.
So the final assessment isn't total victory, but
progress, not perfect. How this, and ultimately its final line on this is woke is most definitely broke.
Broke financially, broke in terms of public acceptance. That seems to be the core takeaway.
Yeah. The source concludes that while the underlying ideas might persist or rebrand, their widespread acceptance and, more importantly, their financial power have been seriously diminished. This has forced adaptations and shifted public tolerance and corporate strategies. Well, this deep dive certainly explored a very specific and strongly argued perspective on acclaimed cultural and financial. The source contends that many corporate media outlets have had to rethink their approach, driven less by ideology and more by, well, audience reaction and economic facts.
A compelling narrative laid out by the source based on the evidence it chose to highlight.
Absolutely. So thinking about all this, especially the source's claims about companies alien, here's something to ponder. What might be the next unexpected area, maybe a different industry where we could see a dramatic, not because of some top-down mandate, but just because the market, the consumers demand, and, how might that kind of shift impact?